Hello world, welcome to the 175th, wow, 175th Climate Change Emergency Protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I'm out on the Gettysburg battlefield. Uh, and this April 15th, 2022. Next week is April 22nd, 2022, and that'll be number 176. That'll be Earth Day as well. So what you're seeing on the Gettysburg battlefield is the remnants of a botched parachute. There are many guys practicing with the Army parachuting over the battlefield with a certain group. I don't want to name names. Just to practice for the Army and possible future needs, as Army guys have to do, about if they're needed around the world. So this is what happens though when you're using 1940s technology in 2022. You kind of are at the mercy of the wind, and the giant canopy of a parachute tends to go with the wind, and sometimes you end up in the woods. And luckily, several of the soldiers that did get hung up were extricated themselves out of the trees. But it's a representation of something, and it's a failed diplomatic effort concerning Russia and Ukraine that we're now amping up practice sessions and things like that. And everyone's turning a blind eye as to what's happening around the world as far as that goes, but more importantly about climate change. There are events happening all over the place now, and it's at 1.2 degrees increase since supposed 1880 baseline, but they should be using 1750 as the baseline for the temperatures. But that's splitting hairs, doesn't really matter. Things are happening right now, and everyone's acting like everything's normal, and it is not. It is getting out of control. People are dying all over the world right now in droves, and people don't even know it, especially in America, because media and the politicians are saying absolutely nothing about it, and everything's being controlled by the media and the politicians as far as which direction we're going. And you really have to do your own research on YouTube and other media, sometimes on Facebook, as to what's really happening in the world. So, for example, the Arctic 3 weeks ago was 70 degrees above the average. Antarctic was 70 degrees above their average for the winter, or coming out of their summer into winter. And 70 degrees is unheard of. The Arctic, the same exact time, was 50 degrees above their average. So it's insane as to what's happening around the world, temperature-wise and weather-wise and everything, and effects on water and everything else. And yet and wildfires, and we're just ignoring it and turning a blind eye to everything. Carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere right now, which is a greenhouse gas, one of the many, is the highest in human history. It's at 421 parts per million. Back in the year 1750, which is the real baseline, it was 280 and under, and it had stayed under 300 parts per million for all of human history. This 420, which is way above that, is in a kill zone. It's 140 parts per million above where it should be. And we're in a kill zone right now, and temperature is there's a lag time of 10 to 30 years between carbon dioxide and temperature catching up. And we're in for a hellscape in the future as to what's coming. We're setting ourselves up in the United States for wildfires that have never been seen before. If you look at the USA Drought Monitor, it is insane as to how much the United States is under some form of drought. We're going to have fires in areas that have never seen fires. You're going to have situations occurring due to temperatures heating up and wild fluctuations. For example, today there's no wind at all, events happening that we've never seen before in the United States. I kind of think the Appalachian Mountain Chain, which is on the eastern seaboard, is actually going to have severe problems this year. There are record outbreaks of tornadoes happening in the Midwest and around the country. In the world, we've had 300 plus deaths in South Africa. Americans know nothing of this because the news does not report it. In the Philippines, over 123 people were killed in landslides due to rain. And around the world right now, 10% of the top people are contributing 50% of emissions. There's no reporting about that. There are so many things they could be talking about on the media, and they're choosing to say nothing, absolutely nothing about climate change in the United States. It is unbelievable. And if anyone's from around the world listening, feel free to post as to what is happening in your area concerning the media. I'd more than welcome that, and that's fine. Over the past, since August of last year, the IPCC, part of the UN, it's a board that got together to make reports as to what's happening with the world, and they periodically do this. They gave a death notice to essentially to all of humanity and all life on Earth. Extinction event. Okay, they gave 3 reports since last summer. COP26 had occurred last summer as well, or last fall, and that was all the countries got together, and it was a total dismal failure. They made pledges which are empty promises. Antonio Guterres, the head of the United Nations, said, "We're digging our own graves. We're digging our own graves." You get that? He said governments are lying about their plans and as far as actions being taken. This is coming from the United Nations chief diplomat saying this. This is unheard of. He is frightened out of his mind as to what's happening, and everyone's just ignoring it. And I mean everyone around the world. There should be massive protests every day, everywhere, all the time. Until governments start taking action and decide to save us from extinction. And extinction doesn't mean you're going to wake up one morning and die. That means you're going to starve to death, go thirsty, all sorts of weird things that can happen to you when you involve humans against humans. And it's going to be massive wars breaking out over water, things like that. So this situation that's occurring is absolutely horrendous. It is coming our way. It's a hellscape. But, you know, let's keep going the way we're going. Inflation in the United States is at 8%, meaning people can't afford to live anymore because the pay they're getting is crap anyway for the most part, except for the top echelon. We're having a proxy war with Russia over Ukraine. Totally idiotic because events that led up to that point, you know, is a warning by many, many, many people to the Bush administration and Obama administration to the following administrations after that, that you can't allow NATO to expand into the old Warsaw Pact nations without freaking Russia out. And I'm not excusing Russia. They're horrendous and they're creating war crimes right now. But what led to this situation is not a thing in a bottle by itself. It is caused by the whole world engaging in policies with each other and not engaging in diplomacy and talking to each other and understanding each other as to what's happening. And right now it is a go it alone type policy that, you know, well, who cares what you guys think? You know, this is the kind of stuff that's happening in the United States right now too. Who cares what you think? I don't care what the other side thinks. We're right. And in reality, everybody's wrong and everybody's right. You know, nobody's talking to each other and understanding each other, and that's a problem. Right now, gasoline prices are at all-time high. My thinking is that's a good thing if they use it to advantage and start investing in renewables. But no, of course not. We're going to drill, baby, drill and keep going at it. United States women's right to choose is under attack, and that's going by the wayside. Meanwhile, people are sitting by the wayside and just watching the news and not doing anything about it. Black Lives Matter. You have people of color absolutely being executed on the street if they are pulled over for an ordinary traffic stop, and yet that keeps going, and people aren't protesting about that. These protests cannot be a one and done, I did my part and I'm done. This has to be a weekly, if not daily thing, and you have to post and you have to be enraged by what's going on. This is part of democracy, and if you believe in democracy, supposedly we're fighting for democracy, then you have to engage all the time. You can't sit back and let others dictate, such as politicians, what's going on. So in the United States, you know, there's low unemployment now, but what's happening is you have crap jobs and crap pay. People can't keep pace with the rate of inflation. So you're going to end up with starvation issues, or people have to forego certain things. And maybe that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a lifestyle change entirely, and people are going into poverty in massive amounts. You have food shortages that are going to come up around the world due to this war in Ukraine and also the environmental situation going on. You have water in the United States. Believe it, the United States has towns that have water that's undrinkable. As you know, in Flint, Michigan, became worldwide famous when Obama gave a fake drink of water in front of everybody, and they knew he was faking it. And because they said, "Oh, you drink this water then," and he did. He let it hit his lips, and that's as far as it went. So Flint, Michigan still has water issues. You have wildfires going on. You have floods. You have severe weather, loss of property, you know, in millions and billions of dollars, and you have people actually dying as a result of climate change. So you have an uninformed public going on right now. The media is totally not reporting things, what's going on. No politician, and I don't care if they're Democrats or Republicans, absolutely no politician is serious about climate change. If they were, this would be a whole sit-down strike in whatever political organization there is around the world, and they wouldn't allow anything to go through. They cause a ruckus, they'd get arrested, they'd do whatever they have to do. And the problem with politicians right now is they're going for careers rather than survival. And we need people in charge that are just hell-bent on just getting things done the right way and not get worried about getting reelected. So you have people that are unengaged in their democratic process. They're allowing leaders to dictate which way we're going, as opposed to us dictating to the leaders which way we want to go, such as survival. So this is a whole situation going on, and the public just sits back on their hands. They vote, and then they let it go. They give a rubber stamp to the voting process. You know, they don't vote for the people that are engaged and have a vision as to the future, and especially about climate change. There is not one climate change politician out there. So they give a rubber stamp to their voting based on their political party. And, you know, if you're going to do a rubber stamp for your political party, no matter how hellacious the person is, such as people in charge right now, you might as well just put in your rubber stamp for 30 years and say, just take my vote for 30 years and you guys do whatever you want, because it's essentially what's happening right now. Newsflash, we don't have 30 years to wait. We probably don't have more than a few years until things are way out of control. Antonio Guterres said we have less than 3 years to get a hold of this climate change or this carbon dioxide emission issues, and to get control of it and have peak carbon dioxide, and that's it. And then we got to start reducing by a huge amount, and we have to have a 43% reduction within the next 7 years. So instead of doing that, though, we're on pace to increase carbon emissions by 14%. You know, there is not one politician, as I said, it's about climate change. Right now, Joe Biden, and I know I'm talking about this, but it's a fact as to what's going on. This is reality, and I'm not saying the other party's right, because they're far from right, so far from right, it's not even funny. But Joe Biden's answer to this whole gasoline crisis issue is to drill, baby, drill. His policy now, and he said this on live TV, is to, in areas where gas and oil companies have been given and mining companies have been given a lease to drill and mine on public property and federal lands, his policy is to use it or lose it. So if they don't drill, baby, drill, and drill the hell out of things and kill us even more, then they're going to lose the rights to their lease, and he's going to issue leases to people who will do that. Right now on Facebook, I'm being severely ratcheted down. You look at my view count, and it's totally bogus as to what's going on. And I'm sure I'll get shut down for this right now, but at least some of you are watching. Also, the algorithms, you know, I can post things and it doesn't get out as far as who's doing what. And, you know, I like posting news articles constantly, and I'm pretty sure that it's being ratcheted down. You guys are probably experiencing that as well. So democracy, you know, if you don't nurture it and take care of it and engage all the time, such as First Amendment, and this does deal with climate change, because the whole issue, such as me being ratcheted down concerning climate change, is one of those examples of that. And if you don't have free speech in this country or around the world, then you don't have a democracy. The First Amendment in the United States of the Constitution was freedom of speech. That's the most important thing. People think it's a Second Amendment, which is right to bear arms. It is not. The framers of the Constitution made sure that freedom of speech was the First Amendment. That means absolute first on the list, because they knew if you don't have free speech, you don't have anything. So right now for climate change, there is no plan. There's no case being made by any politician, and I don't care if you think your politician is a climate change politician. They are not. They're just virtue signaling to their groups, as did in the last campaign when you saw Joe Biden say climate change is an existential threat. And then here we are, we're being existential with the United Nations head diplomat, Antonio Guterres, saying we're all going to die if we don't get on top of this. And yet Joe Biden continues to amp up the policy of issuing like 80 million, for real, 80 million acres in the Gulf of Mexico for drilling and things like that. So this is a case where people see their party, whether it's Republican or Democrat in this country, and they give them a rubber stamp and do whatever you want, and that's okay. So the media's not covering it, the politicians aren't reporting on it, and we're in big trouble. And this parachute hanging in the tree is an example of failed diplomacy. It's a failure to recognize, you know, that that we fail to recognize that we're having an issue, or other countries are having issues with us, or we're having it with them, and no one's listening to each other. There's no vision of a livable future going on right now. So how do you survive it? You go to war with each other. You make things hostile, and that'll beat someone to death and make them love you. That makes a lot of sense. So here we are, and I don't know how many more of these broadcasts I'll have in me, because I'm being ratcheted down severely, and eventually I think I'm going to get kicked off of this thing, but it's not the right way. In fact, it should be people that are doing climate change reporting should be in the forefront of everything, and they should be given open algorithms and communications with each other. But no, let's keep going the way we're going, and let me know how that works out, you Facebook idiots that are in charge of the whole thing and think your children will escape climate change. That'll work out real well. So we need cooperation between the other countries, between each other, to have diplomatic relations that actually work. No empty promises, as far as climate change and doing things and saying they're going to do one thing and then they end up doing the other. You can't be in lockstep with your political party. You have to be engaged. You have to call them out on their stuff that's going on, such as I'm doing with Joe Biden. And, you can't disengage, and you have to make them hold their feet to the fire as far as getting things done the right way. So, failure to engage is a guarantee of a hellscape for a future in climate change. So I hope everyone gets their program together, because you don't want to be in this hellscape where death is preferable to actually living, and where the living actually are envious of the people that have died, because they're going to be living in a hellscape coming up. So next week will be Earth Day. It'll be April 22nd. Please do something. Try to do something. Get your kids to do something with you. Whatever it is, be out in nature, plant trees, do whatever you need to do. And realize that we're on a hell path. And when you look at the kids and look at your own family, because you will be suffering from climate change coming up. People are dying right now. Realize that you need to get engaged and not give your politicians a free pass. I'll see you next week. That'll be April 22nd. See you later. That'll be number 176.